Paper isn't wealth. We go out and we spend all this time collecting paper so we can buy all these things that break down, all these things that we throw away. Buy a new car. 5 years later we throw it away and we buy a new car. Buy television sets and they all break down. Everything we buy, we collect all this stuff. We lose interest in it. It gets discarded. It breaks down. We throw it away. And yet we perceive ourselves to be wealthy because we've created a lot of rubbish throughout our life. We've created a lot of discarded stuff, or we've built a bigger mansion than the person next door. But have we really been wealthy? Have we had a connection to friends and country and family, a connection to the earth, a connection to the Creator, a connection to reality? To me, that is wealth. That is true wealth. Now, earlier I mentioned how Kerry Ann Cox had activated the songlines when she sang last Saturday night in Byron Bay. And something very interesting that happened a couple of days after that was on the other side of the country in Western Australia, in the tribal grounds of the Wumbai people, where Kerry Ann Cox actually comes from, there is a coal seam gas hub being built. It's the biggest gas hub that's ever been built anywhere in the world. And the government has, of course, claimed that there is no environmental damage being done, that they've done environmental impact studies, that there's no endangered species in the area, and that the whales don't use the coastline there, and all sorts of rubbish. And a couple of days after Kerry Ann activated the songlines, suddenly there at James Price Point were a whole pod of whales splashing around off the shore, and the bilby showed its face. And folks, the bilby is a very rare, very treasured and very endangered little animal that lives in Australia, and apparently it lives right there on the land the gas company would like to claim. And so I believe that a complete stop work has been ordered on the gas hub pending a full investigation and environmental impact study into the endangered bilby. So that is wonderful news. And when Kerry Ann told me the news a couple of days ago, it almost felt like the scene out of Avatar when Neytiri yelled out, "Iwa has heard you." It almost brought a tear to my eye. It really did. I felt so thankful for nature rearing its head and saying, hey, what about us? It was really, truly a wonderful moment, and it certainly has changed things in Western Australia. And so again, we see things being revealed and we see changes occurring, both positive change and negative change. And that's the way it's going to be, folks. So we can only expect it to get more and more polarized. We're going to see some extremely beautiful events, and we're probably going to see some extremely uncomfortable events as well. But it's all about the energy that you're in through the change. So that's what you need to focus on. But it's a fine line as well. I mean, I've often said you can't just sit there in love and light as many New Agers do. This is a huge problem with the New Age movement. And you can't just sit there and wait for Armageddon like the Christians do. Because Armageddon is already here. Armageddon is already happening. Armageddon is the inner battle between light and dark. And you have to face the shadow within yourself. Stand in your power. Stand in your equity. This is what it's all about. This is why I've been talking so much about equity and trust law, folks. It really is important for people to get their head around it, because when you get a basic understanding of trust law, you discover something wonderful. And what you discover is that you're actually free. Many of us have always felt that we should have been free and suspected that we were actually freer than what we perceived ourselves to be. But when you gain an understanding of equity and trust law, the beautiful thing is that you can prove that you're free. And that's why people need to get their heads around it. And it might seem a little complicated at first, but it needs to be understood, and I think it's a good thing to bring to people simply because most people are very left-brained. So you can appeal to their left-brained nature with a little bit of simple logic and a basic understanding of equity, and it can just crack that eggshell because you're appealing to their left-brain nature, and you can do it in a very, very logical and very calm way, and you can demonstrate to them that they're actually free. as I mentioned before, it is a system of fear-based mind control, folks. And a lot of that is the system itself. A lot of it is the legal system. But if you realise that the legal system is just a bunch of statutes that don't really apply to you, and that what does apply to you is actually natural law, and that you can follow natural law simply by doing no harm and being of service to the creation, then life becomes a lot easier. And when you understand how to navigate yourself through the fictional legal system that chooses to impose itself upon you, then it's a very empowering feeling to simply stand in your power, to stand in your power and take full responsibility for yourself and your actions, and to know that you haven't done any harm and you haven't done any wrong, and that all you have to do is stand in that power and address things from the correct perspective. And just having this knowledge allows you to be able to deal with life and deal with the system in an entirely different way. And the time is now, folks. The time seriously is now. I'm actually going to be doing a workshop this Monday where I'm going to be speaking about the situation on the globe and how we can face it and what's possibly coming and how we can deal with it. And I'm also going to be talking about trust law and explaining the basic concept of trust law to people so that they can arm themselves with the knowledge that they are free and they can take it out and they can explain it to their friends. And then I'm going to attempt to get some sort of a roadshow happening so that I can take the workshop around the country and hopefully get the knowledge out to as many people as I can. So any help anybody can give me with that would be greatly appreciated. I think it's a very important time, and I think it's very important that now the veil of secrecy has finally come down almost completely, and that the workings of the system, the mechanism of the system has been laid completely bare, that now's the time to get the knowledge out to people. Because simply having this knowledge will be very instrumental in helping people out of a state of fear-based mind control and of helping them become empowered and feel empowered. And it will encourage them to connect with those around them and to realize how much everybody has been had by this system and how easy it would be to bring about positive change by simply standing in your equity and treating others with compassion. We can fix everything very quickly, folks, and we can even hold the politicians accountable if you like, but I mean, I don't really want to punish them. I just want them to stop controlling everybody else. That's my whole beef with them. I don't really care to punish them. I don't wish to become like they are, for a start. I just like to have them go away and live somewhere else for a while and maybe think about what they've done. But they're just damaged goods too, folks. I mean, obviously they're damaged goods, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. But rather than us just complain about what politicians are doing, why don't we do something about it? Because all we actually have to do about it is to stand in our equity, disconnect from the system, realize how it works. And folks, I really do recommend that you look up the trust law workshops that were put online by Dean Clifford. I mentioned Dean last week on the show. I'm actually going to have him on the show next week to talk a little bit about it, because this is how you do it, folks. You've got to understand how this works and then face the shadow within yourself that prevents you from exercising it, because it's only fear. Courtrooms are even designed energetically to put you in a state of fear. You walk in there and there's all these balustrades everywhere and all this stuff and these guys sitting up in desks and men in suits, and it's all a very, very scary place energetically. You walk into a courtroom, it's never like a good time. It's not somewhere that you go for fun. And it certainly doesn't feel like fun as soon as you walk in there. And that's all done by design. And so you need to understand how this works. And once you do understand how it works, well, you'll probably never have to go to a courtroom again. You can usually deal with it just through paperwork. So I do highly recommend checking out Dean Clifford's workshop, because he really did have a wonderful way of explaining it. And this has been knowledge that has been gathered from all different sources, folks, because we all need to put our heads together to figure out what's going on. And there's so much disinformation out there on the internet. And there's so many people that have tried different avenues, different sovereignty avenues, different constitutional avenues, and different, the free man movement and all this sort of stuff. But very few people have ever managed to really step back and just look at the bigger picture and look at how it actually works. To stand in a place of freedom and know who and what you are, and then figure out why other people are claiming that you're not free. Because once you go through that, you can pretty well rebut the whole lot. You can just go through and you can say, well, actually I am free, and I'm even free by your system, the way you've constructed it. It's just that you've trained me to look at it a different way. And this is what they've done with virtually everybody, folks. And I'm probably making it sound a little bit complicated, but I'm a little bit tired. And so that's the way it goes. But I do intend to have Dean on the show next week to talk to you. And I think it's break time here now, folks. So I'll leave it there for now, and we'll go and have a break. And I'll talk to you again in a few minutes. Thanks for listening.